Hey guys, Sarge here. What I would like to come and speak to you guys about today, just a couple thoughts that I've been kind of looking into. I've always had some interest in, and I kind of want to see just what your all's opinion or views are on this topic. And what I would like to discuss is if we were to look at the overall mindset and even the actions of the individuals that settled the West. Okay, those are the old Wild West cowboys and pioneers, things of that nature. And what are some of the things that they did that maybe we should have been paying more attention to and followed into those footsteps. And just starting right off, guys, one of the things that I kind of think is interesting, if you look at, let's just say one of the old cowboys of the West, they were a jack of all trades in a sense. They weren't just gunfighters. They knew how to care, maintain, and ride a horse, right? A lot more goes into it than just get it on, get it off the horse. They knew how to make a fire, and they had to be pretty reliant on those skills as well on the survival side, because they weren't always sleeping in towns. They weren't always in fortified buildings. A lot of the times they had to trust on their skills to do certain things to actually survive, not just do it for fun, which is what we're doing in today's world. So those are just a couple of the things that I would kind of like to hear your all's opinions on. What do you guys think? But if you look at preppers of today, or individuals who are on the survivalist side of today, there's a lot of things that we take from those settlers of the Wild West, and we try our best to kind of mimic them, but they had to have them to survive. And a lot of times, they left us little notes that we should have been paying attention to. One of the first ones, and this one's very relevant in today's times, where maybe individuals are limited, or maybe there was a time frame, right? We all remember running out of toilet paper, but maybe there's a time frame where we're limited on what food we can get, things of that nature. Well, if we look back at the Old West, they would stockpile food. A lot of the times they would try to get as much of whatever they can and keep a good steady supply of it, just in case they're not able to get it again. Especially for places that were like Wyoming or Montana, where it snows all the time. It's harder for them to go and get, or it doesn't snow all the time, but when it does snow, it's a heavy amount. It's harder for them to get things, right? Those are things that we should have been paying attention to, especially when we are being shut down, or maybe not wanting to leave our home. Let's make sure that we are able to sustain ourselves in our home, okay? And that plays a huge role into it. Being prepared is not being paranoid, okay? So let's just go ahead and cut that one right there, guys. So that's one of the first ones, how they were able to be prepared. Even if you look at the horses that they had, okay, every horse had a saddlebag with it. Well, what was in the saddlebag? Well, think of that saddlebag as almost their emergency vehicle bag. Okay, they had everything in it that they would need to sustain themselves until they could go to somewhere to basically refit or refuel. So fire starting equipment. They, for most side of it, had cordage, okay, something that they could use to tie stuff. In today's world, we have paracord and things of that nature. But they had whatever that they used for those times. They had spare food or whatever it is, but they also had food that made sense for where it was at. So maybe food that wouldn't necessarily go bad as soon as possible. So how could we take that? Well, that's kind of having the dried food or just food that has a longer shelf life in today's world. Ammunition, that was a big one too. They understood that they might not be able to stop at a local town for a long time to refill their firearms. So they knew to have more ammunition on hand. Those are things that we need to, obviously I get it's a little difficult to do now, but we should never have a situation again to where this many people are complaining about there being a shortage of something because they were not prepared. And that's how I kind of view it, is when all these people talk about, well, this is ridiculous and all stuff, it's because you weren't prepared. But if you were prepared, you wouldn't even be upset about it. Okay? So when we look at the lifestyle of the old cowboys, things of that nature, they had to be self-reliant. They would not trust their next meal their next paycheck or their lives onto someone else or something out of their control. Or the ones that did, obviously, did not turn out too well. On a protection side, there were a lot of things when settling the West that could definitely endanger them, and they had to be ready for all of them. Okay, and that's everything from the bandits to wildlife even too. Those are all things that they had to fully have an understanding of. They'd be able to tell the signs of, being able to tell traits of, and know, okay, hey, I'm my own defender out here. I'm not going to have somebody coming out in the middle of nowhere to come defend me, so I'm going to have to be able to do this myself. And those are all things that we can look at happening back then and know, okay, hey, we need to be applying those today to learn from our history, right? Something that I think is very funny, and a lot of the things I've been looking up and reading, I've been looking into a lot of the old school Texas Ranger stuff, and if you guys haven't read up on those, okay, I'm not talking about Chuck Norris, I'm talking about the actual Texas Rangers of the old time when they were first founded. And they were a lot of the protection force for guys who were settling and things of that nature, protecting them from these external factors, and kind of just reading some of their accounts, or accounts that were written on their behalf. It's some very cool stuff looking at the things they had to deal with, knowing that they didn't have a choice. If they quit, then they weren't just quitting on themselves, they were putting on a large group of people that were relying on them to protect them. So they had to be able to push through. They had to be able to kind of think on their feet, have an answer, and get moving with an idea. And those are all things that would help out greatly in today's times. Well, something to think about. We have a lot more stuff today than they did back then, right? And what do I mean? So if a cowboy or a cowgirl, okay, whichever, back then maybe they only had a couple knives. Well, in today's world, we have thousands of different knives, and we have all these different types and all these different things, right? And everybody will go buy 100 of them. Firearms, okay? People will go buy 1,000 different firearms. Or one dude will have 50, 40, whatever it is, right? Holsters, same thing with holsters. Okay, if you have one gun, you have 100 holsters. All right, that's how it is for a lot of people. If you look at how they treated their equipment, it was life support equipment, okay? And they had to kind of use what they could put on the back of a horse. You can't put a safe on the back of a horse, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't. You can own whatever you want to own. It's America. You do whatever you want to do, okay? Awesome. But when it comes to your life protecting equipment, we need to still have that kind of mindset of focusing on having the proper gear and knowing how to use it. And that goes into it a whole lot more than having 1,000 guns. Having 1,000 guns isn't going to help you if you're not trained on the one you carry every single day. Okay? Having 1,000 knives isn't going to help you if you don't even carry a knife every single day. Or if you're in a situation to where you do need a knife and you have one that maybe isn't fitted correctly for the task that you need it in. So knowing your gear is absolutely key. Okay? Knowing how and where to apply your gear is even more important. Most certainly having little smaller knives that I can put in every single pocket of a backpack is awesome. But knowing how and where I can use those knives is even more important. Okay, because if not, then they're just taking up space because they're useless. So those are things to think about, guys. But knowing how to maintain your equipment. A lot of the times with a lot of the cowboy stuff, they were their repairman. Okay, because the next gunsmith or whoever it is could have been hundreds of miles away, 50 miles away, which for them is a whole lot longer than it is for us. So they had to know how to repair their own gear. Think about that. A lot of you guys talk about warranties or whatever it is, right? With all this stuff, whether it's flashlights, knives, whatever, okay? Can you, absolutely, if you buy something from a company, I get it. We live in the 21st century. If it has a warranty, use a warranty to the fullest extent. But kind of how I look at certain things is, what can I fix myself so I just don't even have to worry about them? Okay, I almost buy a piece of equipment and I could care less about the warranty if I can just fix it myself and I know how to fix it myself and I don't have to rely on sending something back to a company to fix it, okay? And that's just kind of how I feel about it. But I also try to buy gear that I don't have to worry about whether it's going to work or not. How do I know? Well, because from me training with it, me understanding how the gear works, I know what to look for, what not to look for. Okay. But think about that with the gear that you guys have, with the setup that you guys have. How would it fare if it was the only thing you used all the time? Do you know how to sharpen your own knives? I think that's a very important thing. And I have a buddy who makes these. Okay, this is an Angel Dynamic knife, but I'm gonna do some stuff with him so he can educate me a whole lot more on the knives, so I don't have to, really focus on having other people or buying more stuff. I can just kind of do everything myself when it comes to the idea of a knife. So great resources are out there. We just need to learn how to use them. So when you guys look at, let's say, your own setup, right? Let's say your own saddlebag, and we'll stop it there. We'll just say you and your saddlebag, okay? What would you have in it? What are some things that you know you can't live without? And how can you maintain those if no one else can? Let's get into a mindset of thinking about that and just kind of brainstorm it, right? I know, obviously for me, having a form of food is imperative. Having water, got it. Having a light source is very important, okay? So that's something to think about too. If you guys are using rechargeable flashlights, things of that nature, if you don't have the capability to recharge them, what are you going to do? So you're going to get a bunch of recharging packs. Okay, what are we going to do if they die? Let's just have a backup plan. And this goes into having a PACE plan. Okay, PACE is primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. And we use it heavily in the military for everything we do, and you guys probably use it all the time. Well, I can probably get to the thought process that individuals that were successful in the Wild West and lived for a long time, they probably had a good PACE plan. They probably knew that, okay, hey, my primary means of self-defense is this 6-shooter, or maybe a lever-action rifle. Their alternate is, the first is the rifle, second's the 6-shooter pistol. Their contingency is probably this knife. Their emergency is probably a rope or some sort of cordage or something that they'll hog-tie people with. But that would just be my thought process with that. But think about it for everything, right? So for means of communication, have a PACE report, have a primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency means of communication. If phones die or something to that effect goes on, how are we going to get a hold of people that aren't immediately near you, right? How are we going to let people know where to meet up? How are we going to do that? Well, we should already have that, kind of planned out. If an ammo shortage happens, how are we going to ensure that we have enough ammunition, to either continue to practice, continue to train, or to defend ourselves if need be? Well, do we kind of live in an ammo sense, paycheck to paycheck, meaning range trip to range trip? I know a lot of guys that they buy a bunch of ammo, they go to the range and shoot all of it, and their guns just stay empty, or they'll keep one magazine of hollow points. That's it. And next range trip, they'll go fill up again. But they don't keep some on a steady supply. And now they're the guys that are kicking themselves, I assure you. So those are things to think about. Let me know what you guys think about this kind of video idea. There's definitely more things we're going to go into a little bit, especially on the prepared side with the PACE reporting, and looking at how people of old did it and how we should learn from it today. Okay, so let me know some of the equipment that you guys would have in your all saddlebag, or what you guys do have in your kind of EDC bags or your vehicle bags, things of that nature. And it'll definitely go into the next video for topic. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. There's a lot of big things coming to the channel. Been very blessed with a lot of good fortune coming this way, so very happy for that, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe like the video, subscribe to the channel here. As always, stay tuned for more. Sarge out.